Chosen one, take a moment and pause. Breathe deeply and reflect on this moment because you are here for a reason far beyond what your eyes can see. This isn't just a coincidence or a random encounter, this is a divine appointment. God led you here today because He has something important to share with you. It may not always feel like it, but every step you've taken in faith, every decision you've made for righteousness, every sacrifice you've offered in silence has not gone unnoticed by heaven. In fact, heaven has taken note of every small act of obedience that others may have overlooked. And now it's time for you to hear something crucial. You are chosen. The world may not always recognize your quiet moments of obedience, and it may seem like your efforts go unnoticed or unappreciated. You may have chosen truth, even when it meant discomfort, forgave, even when the wound was still fresh, and loved, even when that love was not returned. Perhaps you stood alone, bold in your convictions, while others around you took the easy path, choosing convenience over righteousness. Yet in those moments, heaven was watching. God was smiling over your decisions and saying, "That one is mine." Even when it felt like your choices didn't matter, even when you doubted whether anyone saw or cared, God was there knowing the cost of your obedience, and He was well pleased. It's easy to feel forgotten or overlooked when you're living a life of quiet faithfulness. You may have questioned whether your sacrifices were worth it, whether your commitment to righteousness was truly making a difference. After all, in a world where fame and recognition are often tied to success, it's easy to wonder if your unseen obedience matters. But I'm here to tell you, it does. Heaven doesn't measure your worth by how many people notice you or praise you. Instead, heaven sees the purity of your heart, the depth of your faith, and the strength of your character, even when no one else does. Your obedience, no matter how small or silent, is creating an eternal impact that will outlast the applause of this world. In this message, I want to remind you that your journey of righteousness, your willingness to risk everything for what is right, is not in vain. Even though it feels like a narrow, difficult path, and at times it may even feel lonely, you are not walking it in vain. What you have been doing in secret, God is preparing to reveal, in a way that will bring glory to His name. You are not just enduring hardship. You are being shaped into someone who can carry a blessing far greater than you could ever imagine. What you have sown in faithfulness will soon bear fruit for the kingdom, and God is preparing something greater for you, a reward far beyond anything you could ask or think. So let me encourage you with this. Keep going. Stay faithful. Your obedience is not unseen, and heaven is about to honor the choices you've made, even in the quiet moments. You are chosen, and the best is yet to come. In the world we live in, it often feels as though only the loud, the visible, and the popular actions are the ones that matter. We live in a time where recognition is valued, and the applause of the crowd is often seen as the ultimate form of success. But as you've likely experienced, the path of righteousness doesn't always follow the pattern of worldly expectations. In fact, it often leads down roads that are narrow, quiet, and unnoticed by the crowd. And yet God sees everything. Heaven sees everything. Even when you think your actions go unnoticed, even when you wonder if what you're doing matters at all, know this: God is paying attention. There are moments in your life when you chose truth, when it was easier to walk away, stay silent, or compromise. Perhaps you forgave someone who hurt you deeply, even when they never apologized. Maybe you chose to love others without expectation, offering kindness when it felt like no one cared or appreciated you in return. These are the moments that make up the fabric of righteousness, the moments that may seem small or insignificant to others, but to God they are monumental. You didn't make a scene about your choices. You didn't shout from the rooftops to gain attention or recognition. You just obeyed. In a world where everything seems to be about being seen and validated by others, there's something profoundly beautiful about living in the unseen. Your obedience, carried out in the quietness of your heart and the privacy of your life, has been noticed by God. It may have felt like no one saw you when you chose what was right, when you chose to obey even when the cost was high, but I want you to hear this: heaven was watching. The angels paused to witness your obedience. Heaven didn't miss a single moment of your sacrifice. It may have felt like you were walking alone, but in reality you were surrounded by divine attention. Your obedience to God's call has been recorded in the book of life. This theme of divine appointment and unseen obedience is a powerful one throughout the Bible. It reminds us that God is not concerned with outward appearances, performances, or public displays. Instead, He looks at the heart. The moments you thought no one saw are the very moments where God is working, shaping, and preparing you for the next stage of your journey. He sees when you make decisions based on integrity, even when it costs you opportunities or relationships. He sees the quiet times you prayed, the times you chose not to gossip, or the moments you resisted the temptation to give in to anger or bitterness. He knows when you chose to walk away from a toxic situation, even though it left you feeling lonely and misunderstood. These choices are not insignificant. In Matthew 6:4, the Bible says, "Your Father who sees what is done in secret will reward you." This verse is a reminder that God is not overlooking your sacrifices, no matter how small they may seem. The times you chose purity over popularity, truth over comfort, or love over resentment, those choices are precious to God. And while others may not have seen or appreciated your efforts, God sees everything. He sees the moments you said yes to His will, even when it didn't make sense. He saw the tears you cried when no one was around, the prayers you whispered in the quiet of the night when you felt abandoned, and the steps you took in faith, even when fear tried to paralyze you. Every step you've taken in obedience, even when it cost you comfort, has been a testament to your trust in God's plan. Those quiet moments are not without purpose. They are shaping you, preparing you for the greater things God has ahead. As you walk the narrow path of righteousness, choosing to do what was right even when it was hard, you have positioned yourself for God's divine favor. Your obedience has created a foundation, one that will support the blessings God is about to pour out in your life. Just as God provided for Abraham, at the exact moment he needed, He is preparing provision for you in the moments when you feel most vulnerable. God sees the obedience that no one else does. He notices the sacrifice you made, that no one recognized, the long hours you spent in prayer when others were resting, and the quiet acts of service that went unnoticed by those around you. In the book of 2 Chronicles 1:6-9, we are reminded that the eyes of the Lord range throughout the earth to strengthen those whose hearts are fully committed to Him. God is watching. He sees you and your heart. He knows the deepest motivations behind every choice you make. Even when the world overlooks you, heaven is not silent. Heaven is taking note, and the reward for your faithfulness is being prepared. In the quiet moments of obedience, you are building something far greater than you realize. Every decision made in faith, no matter how small, is like a seed being sown into eternity. You may not see the immediate impact of your obedience, but God is working in ways you cannot yet understand. What you are doing today in the hidden places is preparing you for a greater purpose. In the story of the Bible, we see how often God works through people who are obedient in ways that the world would never recognize. Think of Joseph, who spent years in a prison forgotten and rejected, yet he remained faithful. His time of unseen obedience led to a position of great influence. Think of Daniel, who refused to compromise his faith, even when it meant being thrown into the lion's den. God saw him, and in the end, it was through his obedience that God's power was displayed to the world. Think of Jesus, who endured the cross, suffering in silence, but his obedience to God's will changed the course of history. These stories remind us that even when we feel invisible, even when our faithfulness seems unnoticed, we are not forgotten. God is at work, and He is preparing us for the harvest that will come. Heaven is responding to your obedience, and though the world may not see it now, one day it will. You are being positioned, shaped, and prepared for what's next. Your private decisions, your quiet yeses, are creating a foundation that will carry you through the storms and challenges that lie ahead. So, let me remind you once more, you are not unseen. Your obedience has been noticed, and God is well pleased with you. In the seasons where it feels like no one is watching, remember that your obedience matters. It is not just about the outcome. It is about becoming the person God has called you to be. Every sacrifice, every choice for righteousness is forming the foundation for your future breakthrough. Keep walking in obedience. Keep trusting, because in the silence, something sacred is unfolding. God is preparing something far greater than you can imagine, and your unseen obedience is a vital part of that plan. Righteousness is not a path that is easily paved. It's not a road that promises comfort, convenience, or applause. In fact, righteousness often feels like a risk, an uncomfortable, uncertain journey that challenges everything we thought we knew about success, comfort, and the expectations of the world. The world constantly urges us to blend in, to conform, to seek shortcuts, and take the easy way out. But righteousness stands in opposition to this worldly logic. It challenges us to walk against the current, to take the harder path, and to remain faithful even when it costs us everything. Living righteously often means standing alone. It means choosing the truth when others lie, speaking up when others stay silent, and holding fast to integrity when others compromise. Righteousness doesn't fit neatly into the world's expectations. It doesn't blend in with the crowd. Instead, it sets us apart. It's a path that leads uphill while the rest of the world rushes downhill. And while the world may offer instant gratification and easy gains, righteousness demands patience, sacrifice, and often suffering. It's easy to think that righteousness should come with immediate rewards. After all, if we are doing what's right, shouldn't we be rewarded quickly? Shouldn't we be praised for our obedience? The truth is, righteousness rarely feels like a reward at first. It often feels like loss, like rejection, or like a costly sacrifice that no one else notices. But that is precisely what makes it so powerful. Righteousness is about what happens in the unseen, in the moments where no one is watching, where there's no applause, no recognition, no validation from others. And it's in these quiet, unseen moments where your character is shaped, where you prove to God and to yourself that you are willing to stay faithful, even when the world can't see the value of your obedience. The path of righteousness can sometimes feel like a test of endurance, a test of your trust in God's promises, even when the results aren't immediate. The Bible is full of stories of people who walked in righteousness, but suffered greatly for it. Consider the story of Jeremiah, the prophet called by God to deliver a message of repentance to a people who would not listen. Jeremiah faced mockery, imprisonment, and even threats to his life, all because he stood firm in God's truth. He was rejected not because he was wrong, but because he was right. He lived through moments of loneliness and despair, yet he continued to speak the word of the Lord, trusting that God's plan would ultimately prevail. Jeremiah's story reminds us that standing for righteousness often means facing opposition and suffering for the cause of truth. In Jeremiah 2:09, we find his cry, "But if I say, I will not mention his word, or speak any more in his name, his word is in my heart like a fire shut up in my bones. I am weary of holding it in. Indeed, I cannot." Even in the righteousness is not a path that is easily paved. It's not a road that promises comfort, convenience, or applause. In fact, righteousness often feels like a risk, an uncomfortable, uncertain journey that challenges everything we thought we knew about success, comfort, and the expectations of the world. The world constantly urges us to blend in, to conform, to seek shortcuts, and take the easy way out. But righteousness stands in opposition to this worldly logic. It challenges us to walk against the current, to take the harder path, and to remain faithful, even when it costs us everything. Living righteously often means standing alone. It means choosing the truth when others lie, speaking up when others stay silent, and holding fast to integrity when others compromise. Righteousness doesn't fit neatly into the world's expectations. It doesn't blend in with the crowd. Instead, it sets us apart. It's a path that leads uphill, while the rest of the world rushes downhill. And while the world may offer instant gratification and easy gains, righteousness demands patience, sacrifice, and often suffering. It's easy to think that righteousness should come with immediate rewards. After all, if we are doing what's right, shouldn't we be rewarded quickly? Shouldn't we be praised for our obedience? The truth is, righteousness rarely feels like a reward at first. It often feels like loss, like rejection, or like a costly sacrifice that no one else notices. But that is precisely what makes it so powerful. Righteousness is about what happens in the unseen, in the moments where no one is watching, where there's no applause, no recognition, no validation from others. And it's in these quiet, unseen moments, where your character is shaped, where you prove to God and to yourself that you are willing to stay faithful, even when the world can't see the value of your obedience. The path of righteousness can sometimes feel like a test of endurance, a test of your trust in God's promises, even when the results aren't immediate. The Bible is full of stories of people who walked in righteousness, but suffered greatly for it. Consider the story of Jeremiah, the prophet called by God to deliver a message of repentance to a people who would not listen. Jeremiah faced mockery, imprisonment, and even threats to his life, all because he stood firm in God's truth. He was rejected not because he was wrong, but because he was right. He lived through moments of loneliness and despair, yet he continued to speak the word of the Lord, trusting that God's plan would ultimately prevail. Jeremiah's story reminds us that standing for righteousness often means facing opposition and suffering for the cause of truth. In Jeremiah 2:09, we find his cry, "But if I say, I will not mention his word or speak any more in his name, his word is in my heart like a fire shut up in my bones. I am weary of holding it in. Indeed, I cannot." Even in a world obsessed with visibility, recognition, and public accolades, it can be easy to overlook the profound power of private faithfulness. We often equate success with what can be seen. The social media posts, the public awards, the praises and applause from others. But God operates differently. His kingdom operates on principles that are often hidden from the world's view, and in that hiddenness, something sacred is taking place. The private, unseen moments of obedience are the very places where God works most powerfully in our lives. God is not concerned with outward appearances or performances. He is more interested in the state of your heart than the actions that others see. In 1 Samuel 1:6-7, God speaks to Samuel about David, saying, "The Lord does not look at the things people look at. People look at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart." This passage emphasizes that God values the inner condition of our hearts, the sincerity behind our actions, rather than the praise we receive from others. The moments when no one else is watching are the ones that truly matter to God. It's in these private moments of faithfulness that we prove our devotion to God, even when there's no public acknowledgement, no applause, and no recognition. Private faithfulness often requires a deep level of surrender. It means choosing to do what is right, even when no one will ever know or reward you for it. It's choosing to forgive when it's hard, and there's no one around to witness your act of grace. It's serving others without expectation of recognition. It's making decisions based on your convictions, not on what will bring you attention or approval. It's living out righteousness in the quiet moments of life, knowing that God is watching even if no one else is. Consider the example of Jesus. Throughout his ministry, he often withdrew to solitary places to pray, seeking communion with his Father in private. Though he performed many public miracles, it was in the quiet moments of prayer and solitude that his strength was renewed and his mission was defined. Jesus lived a life of quiet obedience to his Father, and he constantly reminded his followers that what is done in secret is just as significant, if not more so, than what is done in public. In Matthew 6:3-4, he says, "But when you give to the needy, do not let your left hand know what your right hand is doing, so that your giving may be in secret. Then your Father who sees what is done in secret will reward you." This verse highlights the importance of living in such a way that we don't seek validation or recognition from others. We're not called to be seen by men, but by God. Our giving, our acts of kindness, our service, our sacrifices, these are all done in secret, knowing that God is the ultimate rewarder of our faithfulness. The invisible moments of righteousness, when we choose to do what is right without anyone noticing, carry more weight in God's eyes than all the public acts of goodness combined. Think about how often we live our lives for the approval of others. How many times have you made a decision because you wanted to be seen in a certain light? How many times have you acted a certain way to impress others, only to realize that what truly mattered was how you stood before God, not the opinions of people? True obedience to God doesn't depend on the audience or the accolades. It depends on a heart that is fully surrendered to Him, even when the world doesn't notice. It is about seeking God's approval, not the praise of men. In your own life, how often have you made a choice for righteousness when no one was watching? Maybe you forgave someone who hurt you deeply even though there was no apology. Maybe you chose to stay faithful in your marriage or relationship when no one would have blamed you for walking away. Maybe you made a decision to serve others without the expectation of recognition simply because you felt led to do so. These are the moments that matter. These are the moments that shape your character and draw you closer to God. God sees your private faithfulness. He sees the sacrifices you make that no one else will ever know about. He sees the decisions you make in secret that cost you something even though no one else can appreciate the cost. And He rewards that faithfulness. It may not always come in the form of immediate rewards or recognition from others, but it will come. Matthew 6:4 promises, "Then your Father who sees what is done in secret will reward you." These words are a reminder that nothing done in God's name, nothing done in faith is ever wasted. In fact, some of the most significant moments of your life may be the ones that no one else knows about. The private prayers you pray when no one is watching, the tears you shed in secret, the steps of obedience you take in the quiet, unseen moments, all of these are treasures in the eyes of God. They are laying the foundation for the greater things He has in store for you. Just as a seed must remain hidden in the ground before it can sprout and grow into something beautiful, so too must your obedience be nurtured in secret before it bears fruit in the open. Private faithfulness is also where God prepares you for the greater things He has in store. It is in these moments that He shapes your character, builds your trust, and deepens your relationship with Him. The times of quiet obedience, when no one else is aware of your struggles, your sacrifices, or your victories, are the moments that build the roots of your faith. And when the storms of life come, it is those deep, unseen roots that will hold you steady. If you've ever felt that your obedience goes unnoticed, if you've ever questioned whether your sacrifices are worth it, take heart. Your faithfulness is seen by God. And while the world may overlook you, God is preparing something eternal through your hidden obedience. In the end, it's not the applause of man that will matter. It's the approval of God. He sees your heart, your devotion, and your obedience. And when the time is right, He will reward you openly. In the kingdom of God, private faithfulness holds eternal significance. Every moment of obedience, no matter how small or unseen, is a seed being sown into the kingdom. One day those seeds will bear fruit, and the world will see the fruit of your faithfulness. But even if they don't know that God sees, and that, my friend, is enough. So keep being faithful in the quiet moments. Keep choosing righteousness when no one is watching. Keep living for God's approval, not man's. Because when God rewards, His reward will far outweigh anything this world could ever offer. Your private obedience is not in vain. It is the very thing that will carry you into the fullness of God's purposes for your life. One of the hottest seasons in the journey of faith is the waiting. It is during this time between the promise and its fulfillment that many believers find themselves weary, uncertain, and often questioning if their obedience was truly worth it. The waiting period can feel like a pause in the story of our lives, a time when it seems like nothing is happening, and the breakthrough we've been praying for feels distant and elusive. Yet, this waiting is not an empty space. It is a sacred and purposeful part of the process that God uses to prepare us for what's to come. When we wait on God, we are not idle. We are in a season of preparation. Waiting is not about being passive, nor is it a sign of delay or abandonment. It is an intentional and vital phase of our spiritual journey. As much as we desire quick results, God's timing is perfect, and He uses the waiting period to shape and refine us. In Isaiah 40:31 we read, "But those who wait on the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not be faint." This verse assures us that while waiting may feel like a time of stagnation, it is actually a time of renewal. God is strengthening us in the waiting, building us up in ways that will sustain us for the journey ahead. The truth is, God doesn't waste any season in our lives, including the waiting seasons. He is using this time to prepare us for something far greater than we could have imagined. Just as a seed must remain buried in the soil before it can sprout and grow into a plant, so too must our calling take root in the unseen before it can bloom in the visible. It is in the darkness, in the hiddenness of the waiting season, that God is nurturing and preparing what will one day be revealed. And though we cannot see the growth taking place beneath the surface, trust that it is happening. Waiting can also be a time when our faith is tested. It is easy to believe in God's promises when everything is going well, when we can see the path ahead clearly. But the true test of faith comes when we can't see the immediate outcome, and we are forced to trust God even when circumstances don't seem to line up with what He has promised. During this time, God is working to build a deeper level of trust within us. Waiting on the Lord means surrendering our own timeline and choosing to trust in His. This kind of trust requires us to release control and rest in His faithfulness. In Proverbs 1:3-1-2 we find this powerful statement, "Hope deferred makes the heart sick, but a longing fulfilled is a tree of life." The waiting period is often accompanied by an ache in our hearts, an unfulfilled longing for the breakthrough, the answer, the fulfillment of God's promises. This ache can sometimes feel unbearable, but it is not a sign of failure. It is evidence that your heart is reaching for something that God has planted within you. This longing is a reminder that there is more to come, and God is working behind the scenes to bring it to fruition. The sick heart we experience in the waiting is not a permanent state. It is the space where God is developing in us a deeper level of hope, patience, and resilience. As we wait, it's important to remember that God is never idle. Even when we feel like nothing is happening, God is at work. Think of the story of Joseph. Joseph received a prophetic dream as a young man that promised him great leadership and influence. However, his journey to that promise was not quick or easy. He was betrayed by his brothers, sold into slavery, falsely accused, and thrown into prison. For years, Joseph's situation seemed to move further away from the dream he had received. Yet in every season, God was preparing him. Every challenge Joseph faced was part of God's divine strategy to shape him into the leader He needed him to be. The waiting period was not a waste. It was a time of growth and preparation. Joseph's waiting eventually led him to a position of authority where he could save a nation. In the same way, God uses our waiting seasons to refine our character, to teach us endurance, patience, and trust. It is during these times that He shapes us into the person who can carry the blessing and responsibility He is preparing for us. Without the waiting, without the preparation, we would not be ready to handle what He wants to give us. If Joseph had not spent years in preparation, if he had not learned to trust God in the midst of his trials, he would not have been able to manage the great responsibility that was eventually placed upon him. Another important aspect of the waiting season is learning how to live with the tension between the promise and its fulfillment. There is a gap between what God has spoken and when we actually see it come to pass. That gap can be filled with doubts, frustrations, and confusion. But it is also where God does some of His most significant work in us. In the waiting, we are learning to trust God, even when we don't understand the how or the when. We are learning to rely on His strength rather than our own. Psalm 105:19 offers a powerful reminder of how waiting is a part of God's process. Until what He foretold came to pass, the word of the Lord tested him. The waiting is a testing of our hearts. It is a refining process where God is purifying our motives, building our faith, and developing the character necessary to carry out His will. We often want to skip over the waiting, but it is in this season that God is making us ready for the greater things ahead. Waiting also teaches us that God's timing is perfect. He is never early and never late. While we may grow frustrated with the delay, God is never caught off guard. He is intentional in his timing, and his delays are not denials. When we wait on the Lord, we are positioning ourselves to receive his promises at the perfect time, his time, not ours. As Galatians 6:9 reminds us, let us not become weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up. The harvest is coming, but it will come in the right season, at the right time, and in the right way. As you wait, remember that God is not withholding good things from you. He is preparing you to receive them. In the waiting, he is shaping your heart, your character, and your faith. He is teaching you to trust in his timing, to lean into his presence, and to hold fast to his promises. The waiting season is not a pause in your journey. It is a critical chapter that God is using to prepare you for the fulfillment of what he has promised. So do not despise the waiting. Do not grow weary in the delay. Understand that God is doing something significant in you, even when you can't see it. He is preparing you for the breakthrough, for the promises that will come, and for the person he is shaping you to be. Keep trusting, keep waiting, and know that in his perfect timing, he will bring to pass everything he has promised. In the journey of faith, we often wish for a life that is marked by rapid success and visible rewards. The world encourages us to seek immediate results, to measure our progress by what we can see right now, and to compare our journey to those around us. But the truth is, lasting success and true fulfillment in God's kingdom are built on a different foundation. They are built on the quiet, unseen moments of faithfulness, obedience, and perseverance that may seem insignificant in the moment, but will stand the test of time. What we often fail to realize is that the struggles and sacrifices we face are not just obstacles to endure. They are part of the divine blueprint God is using to build something eternal in us. Every challenge, every trial, every act of obedience is shaping us into the person God has called us to be and preparing us for the greater purpose he has for our lives. In these moments, God is laying the foundation for something much bigger than we can fully comprehend. What we may perceive as setbacks, delays, or hardships are actually God's tools to form us, refine us, and prepare us to carry the weight of the blessings he wants to give us. The Bible tells us in 1 Corinthians 3:1, "For no one can lay any foundation other than the one already laid, which is Jesus Christ." Our foundation is not built on our achievements or our own efforts, but on the rock of Jesus Christ. His righteousness, his faithfulness, and his love are the bedrock upon which we stand. And yet, while the foundation is laid by Christ, it is up to us to build upon it with our actions, our obedience, and our choices. The strength of that foundation depends on the choices we make, even in the seemingly small and unnoticed moments. In Matthew 7:2-4-7, Jesus illustrates this concept through the parable of the wise and foolish builders. He says that the wise man is the one who hears his words and puts them into practice, building his house on the rock. When the storms of life come, the house stands firm, because it is built on a solid foundation. On the other hand, the foolish man builds his house on the sand, and when the storms come, it collapses. This parable teaches us that our foundation must be built on the Word of God and on a life of obedience to Him. It is not the flashy, attention-grabbing moments that build the strongest foundation, but the quiet and consistent acts of faithfulness that prepare us for the trials ahead. In our modern world, we often seek the quick path to success. We are enamored with instant gratification, rapid results, and the illusion of a fast track to our goals. But God's ways are not like our ways. His desire is not to give us temporary rewards, but to build eternal foundations in our lives. Every act of righteousness, every moment of obedience, is a piece of the foundation that will support us when the storms of life come. Consider the story of Joseph, one of the most well-known examples of perseverance through suffering. Joseph received a dream from God that he would one day rule over his brothers and even his family. But his journey to the fulfillment of that promise was long and filled with trials. He was sold into slavery by his own brothers, falsely accused by Potiphar's wife, and thrown into prison. Each of these events seemed like a setback, a roadblock, a delay in the fulfillment of his dreams. But through it all, Joseph remained faithful to God. He did not let bitterness, anger, or disappointment guide his actions. Instead, he kept his eyes fixed on the promises of God, trusting that even in the darkest moments, God was at work. God was building something in Joseph during those years of suffering, something that could not be built in the comfortable moments of success. Joseph's time in prison, his time of rejection and isolation, was not a punishment but a preparation. God was developing his character, teaching him humility, patience, and the ability to lead with wisdom and integrity. By the time Joseph was elevated to a position of power in Egypt, he was ready to handle the responsibility. His foundation was strong, and the weight of his position did not crush him, because it was built on a rock-solid foundation of faith and obedience. Joseph's story teaches us that the process of building eternal foundations often involves periods of hardship, waiting, and testing. These seasons are not wasted. They are the very moments that shape our character, deepen our faith, and prepare us for the purpose God has for our lives. Just as a tree's roots must grow deep in the soil before it can bear fruit, so too must our spiritual roots grow deep in the truth of God's word and the practice of obedience. It is in the quiet, unseen moments of faithfulness that God is preparing us to bear fruit that will last. Another example of this process is found in the life of David. David was anointed to be king of Israel as a young shepherd boy, but his journey to the throne was not immediate. Before he was crowned king, David spent years in the wilderness, running from King Saul, facing danger and enduring hardship. But during those years, God was shaping David's heart. He was teaching him how to trust in God's timing, how to lead with humility, and how to remain faithful, even when it seemed like the promise would never come. David's time in the wilderness was not a detour. It was part of God's plan to build a solid foundation in his life. When David finally became king, he was ready to lead with wisdom, courage, and integrity, because his foundation had been laid in the solitude of the fields and the wilderness. In our own lives, we may be tempted to rush through the hard seasons, to try and bypass the waiting or the suffering. We may look around at others and wonder why their lives seem easier, why they seem to receive their rewards so quickly. But we must remember that the foundation of a life well lived is built in the unseen moments. It is built in the quiet obedience, the small sacrifices, the times when we choose righteousness over comfort, and the moments when we trust God even when we don't understand His plan. The foundation that God is building in us is not for temporary success, but for eternal significance. This foundation is what will allow us to withstand the storms of life. Jesus promised us that storms would come, trials, challenges, and hardships are inevitable. But He also promised that if our lives are built on Him, on His word, and on the obedience to His commands, we will stand firm. In Luke 6:4-7-4-8, Jesus says, "As for everyone who comes to me and hears my words and puts them into practice, I will show you what they are like. They are like a man building a house, who dug down deep and laid the foundation on rock. When a flood came, the torrent struck that house, but could not shake it because it was well built." Your life built on the foundation of obedience, righteousness, and trust in God will not be shaken by the storms that come your way. The waiting, the hardship, and the challenges you face are all part of the process of building that eternal foundation. So keep walking in faith, keep building with obedience, and trust that God is laying the foundation for something far greater than you can see right now. The reward will come not just in the form of a blessing, but in the strength, character, and spiritual depth that will carry you through whatever life throws your way. The foundation you are building today is the one that will support you tomorrow, and it will last for eternity. As we reflect on the journey of righteousness, waiting, and obedience, it becomes clear that the path we walk is not always one of immediate rewards or visible results. The road to fulfillment is often paved with trials, hardships, and moments of quiet faithfulness that the world may never notice. Yet these moments, seemingly small, hidden, and unnoticed, are the very ones that build our character and prepare us for the greater things God has planned. In our walk with God, there are times when we feel forgotten, misunderstood, or even isolated. The world may not see the sacrifices we make, the decisions we choose, or the struggles we endure in silence. But we must remember that God sees all. He knows every tear, every prayer, every sacrifice made in faith. And while the world looks at outward appearances, God looks at the heart. Every step we take in obedience, no matter how small, is noticed by heaven. Heaven is recording your faithfulness, and in due time, God will reward it. The waiting, the sacrifices, and the acts of righteousness we endure are not in vain. They are laying the foundation for something eternal. Just as a seed must remain buried in the ground before it can sprout, so too must our calling take root in the unseen before it can bear fruit in the visible. It is during the quiet, hidden seasons of our lives that God is shaping us, refining us, and preparing us to carry the blessings He is preparing for us. In His perfect timing, the harvest will come and we will see the fruit of our obedience, even if it has taken years to manifest. As we walk this path, we are not walking it alone. Just as the prophets, the disciples, and countless faithful believers before us have endured hardships, trials, and waiting, we are a part of a larger, eternal story. We are surrounded by a cloud of witnesses who have gone before us, walking the narrow path of obedience and righteousness, trusting that God is faithful to fulfill His promises. The same God who was faithful to them is faithful to us today. So, as you continue on your journey, remember this: your obedience is never wasted. The quiet moments of faithfulness you offer in private are being honored by God in ways you may not yet see. Every step you take in righteousness, every decision to trust God, even when it costs you, is preparing you for the greater purpose He has for you. Keep walking, keep sowing, keep waiting. For in the fullness of time, God will reveal the harvest of your faithfulness, and His glory will be made known through your life. God is not finished with you yet. Your story is still unfolding, and the best is yet to come. Trust in His timing, hold fast to His promises, and continue to walk in obedience, knowing that He is preparing something greater than you can imagine. Heaven sees you. Heaven is with you, and heaven is preparing to reward your faithfulness. Keep pressing forward, chosen one, for your obedience will bear fruit that lasts for eternity.